Hello and welcome to the Mindful Men podcast, a show helping men to open up about manhood. My name is Simon Rennie and my aim is to get men talking. From mental health to fatherhood and everything in between, Mindful Men creates a safe space for conversation. Now, before we get into this episode, I want to say a huge thank you for joining me. It means a world for you to join me and talk about men's issues. And if you love what you hear, please subscribe and share the episode with your mates. You can also join the conversation on Instagram and YouTube, and I'd love to connect with you there. But for now, sit back, relax, and let's get mindful. G'day guys, and welcome to another episode of the Mindful Men podcast. My name is Simon Rennie, and I'm the man behind Mindful Men. I'm really excited today because we're going to be talking about something that's dear to my heart, and it's mental health, and a different type of mental health support as in a recovery coach. And today I've got Jake O'Halloran with me in Melbourne, Victoria. How you going, Jake?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. And Jake, you're part of One Good Day. It's a recovery coach support service down in Melbourne. That's right?
Yeah, correct. I believe we've now got recovery coaches in nearly every state in Australia now, apart from Northern Territory.
Oh, cool. So we'll go into that in a little while and really explore what a recovery coach is and what they can do for people. But before we get started into that, I'd love to hear a bit about your story and how you came to be where you are today, and maybe where you grew up and some of the things that you've seen and heard and learnt along the way.
Yeah, sure. So a brief summary of sort of my upbringing. I was born in Wagga in New South Wales, so a bit of a smaller rural country town, population of roughly about 80,000. That's probably on the maximum side of things. So I sort of grew up there, did all my schooling, my university degree there. So I've done my bachelor's degree in psychology. So I studied there and sort of got to the stage where I wanted to challenge myself again. So I decided to pack myself up and move by myself to Melbourne. So it was a good little adjustment period there, but I've really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah. What was it like going from country to city?
Fairly intimidating. I sort of had to, it's one of those times where you've got to lean on the people that you trust and, sort of talk things through and say, look, am I making the right decision for myself? Am I, doing something silly, going out on a limb here? But I think it's worked out quite well for me. Obviously still not used to the traffic, but I probably never will be as a country boy.
So the last time I was in Melbourne, I had to get used to hook turns. I've never seen that before. So
yeah, no, not enjoyable.
And before you moved to Melbourne, did you know anybody that lived in Melbourne, or was it just you on your own and had to figure it out yourself?
No, so I've got a couple of close friends that I grew up with in Wagga that had moved to Melbourne for uni, and had stayed in Melbourne. So I've sort of been able to reconnect with them. So that's been great. And I've become really good friends with their friends from Melbourne. So it's been a really positive sort of lifestyle change for me so far. And sort of looking forward to seeing what else sort of comes of it.
Yeah. And would you ever go back to Wagga?
Only to visit. So, still got lots of family and friends in Wagga. So it's still a place that's quite dear to my heart. But I don't think, now that I've adjusted somewhat to the city lifestyle, I don't think I could go back to Wagga.
You mentioned before that you've done your psych degree.
Yep.
So tell us a bit about why you chose psychology. Like going through high school, was it on your mind that you wanted to help people with mental health, or was it something that you kind of just landed in, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so a bit of both, really. Obviously, going through, a bit of my own lived experience in the early days of high school, that was the first time I sort of really acknowledged within myself that, okay, something's wrong. Like I shouldn't be this sad all the time. and sort of had to actually acknowledge and say, okay, something's wrong here. I need to actually speak to someone about it. And so I've always been interested in sort of how the mind controls the body and your actions and your lifestyle. Because at the end of the day, you can be the biggest and strongest person, man, woman in the world. But if you're not right inside of your own mind and in your mental health, it's all for naught, really. But it was a bit of a mixed thing. So I sort of tossed up between wanting to, really hone in on mental health, but I also liked the sports and performance side of things as well. So I've really tossed up between, wanting to be, like a psychologist and help people with those issues, or if I wanted to do sports psychology and sort of follow that line. But yeah, it's a very interesting sort of field to be involved in. It can be quite challenging, but it's also quite rewarding at the same time. Yeah. Especially when you're sort of seeing positive changes that you're making in people's lives.
Yeah. You touched on a bit of lived experience there in high school, and
Yep.
What's some of the things, if you're happy to share, that you were going through, and how did you work through that during high school, or didn't you work through it?
I think it sort of really came out probably that transition from year 6 to year 7 going into high school. I sort of realised I was probably quite unmotivated and sad more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of got to the stage where I think my parents had sort of picked up on it as well. And it sort of took me admitting, okay, something's, not quite right here, to actually, as much as I didn't want to, reach out and access counselling for the first time and that sort of thing. It really sort of presented itself as being sad and unmotivated, and I think I was starting to put on quite a bit of weight.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't, wasn't playing sports or something, which is something I've always enjoyed. And yeah, it really took, I guess, acknowledging it and addressing it to actually realise that there was something, not quite right, to be able to make that change and, get on the track to being happy again.
Yeah, I think at year 6 and 7, that age would be a very hard thing to acknowledge. I think even understand what was going on. And a lot of people, myself included, sit with it in silence for many, many years, if not decades. But for you to do it so young, you must have had some pretty strong support from your parents or other people around you to help you recognize it.
Yeah, definitely. I think my parents have always been great with that sort of thing, and wanting me to be happy and healthy. Support networks, if you have them, if you're lucky enough to have them, can be invaluable to making sure that you're doing okay and living the most sort of fulfilling life that you can. So I think that's sort of leaning into the recovery coaching as well. It's just another sort of part or fragment of your support network that you can add.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite a rewarding role.
And when you, in that year 6 and 7 mode, did you see a counsellor or a psychologist? Like, what was your journey through that recovery process?
Yeah, so I won't say I enjoyed it. As sort of the typical male, I don't overly enjoy talking about my feelings still to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But I went through a few sessions of counselling, and probably at the start wasn't too receptive to it. But as it sort of went along, I sort of realised, okay, it is quite rewarding to talk to someone and not be judged. I think that's the most important thing, especially as men, and even today. I think it's sort of the general conception that it's somewhat weak as a man to talk about your feelings. So yeah, I would suggest, the counselling is just completely invaluable. If you're ever going through something, just give it a go. Just try it.
Yeah, and it's I guess when we think about mental health recovery or mental health support, psychosocial disability or psychosocial support, we think psychologists, psychiatrists, pretty much, counselling, and to a lesser extent, mental health social workers as well. But then recovery coaches has popped on my radar, say, the last 12 months. I've started to hear about recovery coaching. I'm not sure how long it's been around. Do you know much about the history of recovery coaching? Is this a relatively new support?
Yeah. So it is quite a new support to the NDIS. I'd say probably within the last 2 years, if that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a new field, but the sort of feedback of recovery coaching has been outstanding. As sort of within my own organisation, One Good Day, they've already expanded to nearly all of the states in Australia over the course of about a year and a half. So it's very quickly growing, and it's popping up on more and more sort of NDIS plans and recovery plans. And it's just all the feedback's just been great.
Yeah.
It's helped a lot of people so far.
For people that are not familiar with the NDIS, can you give us a bit of a rundown as to what that is?
Yeah, so essentially the NDIS is it's a government scheme that grants funding for people with disabilities, whether that be physical or psychological, or in this case, psychosocial. So that can range from anything. A lot of my clients will struggle with depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and even acquired brain injuries. So essentially that's funding that people can access, to help them on their recovery journey and their day-to-day life.
Wow. It sounds amazing, the fact that people out there that might be living with some of these conditions might be eligible for some government funding to help support recovery. Because outside of that, you've got the mental health system. So you go to your GP, you might get a mental health care plan, or you're privately paying, or if you happen to be part of Veterans Affairs, you might be able to get some support through that kind of system as well. But this sounds like is it disability specific, or can anybody access a recovery coach?
So at this stage, I believe it's disability specific, but I always suggest that people go to their GP and get a mental health plan. So as I'm sure you know, a mental health plan entitles you to, I think it's 10 free sessions of counselling, and those 10 sessions can make an absolute world of difference.
Definitely, with having access to supports that are available, either subsidised or I think in some cases it's free, and in certain cases as well, it's certainly invaluable. And now that I guess we've got the recovery coaching through the NDIS, it's just another avenue for people to get support. And I guess for people to think that, if you're thinking about mental health and mental illness, some people might not recognise that might meet disability criteria as well. How would people find out about whether or not they're eligible for something like that?
Usually they go through like a support network. So most people will have like a local area coordinator. So there's lots of organisations that will meet with people that aren't doing too well at the time, and sort of try and get a gauge of whether or not funding through the NDIS would be possible. So I think if you're ever up in the air about whether you are or aren't eligible, it's always worth going to check. Because if you can get accepted for an NDIS plan, it can absolutely change your life. There's so many things that can add to those plans that can just turn into positive outcomes for you, and usually positive changes in your life. So it's definitely worth sort of even if you're a bit 50-50 about whether you're eligible, if you feel like your mental health or if you've got a condition and it's debilitating on your day-to-day life, it's definitely more than 100% worth checking. So you went through psychology. So how did you land? A lot of people, they finish psychology, they might go into a private practice or the public system and do psychology there. So how did you kind of transition from psychology into recovery coaching? So obviously first I went to the foster care system. So I worked as a permanency case manager there for 2 and a bit years, and sort of like case managed children and families in foster care systems. So there was lots of, challenging times through that. But I felt where the part of that job that sort of I felt was missing was, the quality time that you actually can spend with people and talk to people to try and make a difference. It was very much sort of just waiting for something to happen and then reporting on it and then dealing with the outcome, rather than, helping to aid their recovery journey and making positive changes. So I think coming to Melbourne, when I saw this sort of pop up, it was very much along sort of the lines of what I, aspired to do and to help people with. So that's very much been in line with my own personal sort of wants. So, but yeah, I've really enjoyed it so far, and even just in the short few months that I've been working as a recovery coach, have already been able to sort of help quite a few people and sort of make some positive changes. So it's been quite rewarding.
Awesome. Could you, I guess, describe, we don't want to talk about client-specific information, but kind of like an average day in the life of a recovery coach? Like, what would a day look like for you?
Yeah, so my days, I try to be as flexible as possible. They're very tailored to what my clients have going on at the moment. So a normal day could include like traveling to see clients, and even if it's just to have a cup of tea and sit down and talk through, and give them the opportunity to feel as though they're heard, and give them the opportunity to vent and that sort of thing. And that's always rewarding. I think that's probably the best part of the job, is getting to share those conversations with people, because I often find they have great insight, and they're very resilient. Mm-hmm. So it's great to sort of whilst I'm imparting a bit of advice and my opinion to them, it's great to hear what they have to say, and I think it's already led to some positive changes in my own life.
Yeah.
Apart from that, there's a lot of, coordination of supports. So like I'll set up support workers, like cleaning, gardening, referrals to OTs, GPs, all that sort of thing. So lots of admin work as well. But yeah, I think there's lots of, quality time with clients. And that can be in person, over the computer, or over the phone. It's, just really depends what the client's comfortable with.
Yeah. And do you ever find like you're drawing from your psychology background when you're doing some of these chats over a cup of tea, or do you find yourself pulling some of these theories out and practices out?
Yeah, I think you really have to pick and choose with psychology. There's a lot of outdated theories that you sort of learn about in uni, and you've got to take the positives out of those and sort of discard the stuff that's not really relevant anymore. Yeah. But yeah, I guess the best part about recovery coaching is you sort of get to bring your own personality and your own spin. So my personal strategy is I like to focus on people's strengths, mm-hmm. And positives. So as I said, a lot of my clients are already quite resilient, and a lot of the time they don't recognize that. So they've already been through a lot of hardships and struggle, but they sort of don't get the opportunity to recognize that and go, okay, well, I have sort of done all these things already. And once you're able to help them realize that they've done it once, they feel more prepared to do it again, and just gain a little bit of belief in themselves and their ability to do things.
I think you've nailed something on the head there, and I spoke about this exact same concept in the episode with Lockie Stewart around people recognizing their resilience during times of hardship as well. So we can often go through life on a bit of autopilot, and we hit these hurdles and we fall flat on the ground and we're not sure how we're going to get up. But I think someone like yourself, like a recovery coach or a psychologist, counsellor, or whoever, it's just a support person or a support network can just highlight to us, hey, you've done this before, you've got up before, and these are some of the things that you did previously. It could have been talking to a GP, it could have been fixing your diet, could have been going for exercise, it could be, linking up with new networks or whatever it is, to get over that hurdle in the past. I really love this concept around resilience, because it's something that we don't tune into a lot. We forget we've got it, and it is a huge strength to us. It's the thing that keeps us going every day. And I always come back to this quote that we've survived 100% of our worst days, and that's through resilience. But you mentioned also before that the resilience from some of your clients has worn off a little bit on you and into your day-to-day life. What's some examples that you can give in regards to that?
So I've got a few clients that have not just, I guess, mental health sort of challenges. They've got physical elements to it as well. So I've got clients that experience like quite severe chronic pain or like acquired brain injuries from it could be a range of things like assaults that have happened, unfortunately, or accidents. So just, they're in constant pain, like quite intense, sharp pain. And they've also got things happening for them in terms of their mental health. But every day, they wake up, they get on with their day, they try not to let that define them. And I just find it, it's very inspiring, especially to put things in perspective for myself, because sometimes I think you can get caught up in the things that you do in your own life. So it's more of an inspiration thing where I can look at them and go, wow, that's actually, so courageous and brave of them to continue to do that. And, especially it puts things in perspective, like those cold nights when I don't want to go to the gym. It's like, okay, well, in hindsight, the struggle of me getting out of bed and going to the gym is a lot less than what some people, push themselves through and do it, a lot of the time do it with a smile. So And
do you find that the people that you work with, do they have much networks around them, or in some cases are you the only network that they've got?
So it's a bit of a spread. Some people have quite good family and sort of social networks, and for other people, I'm sort of with, I guess, other services, the only support. So it's definitely, for those people, I always, and with all my clients, I always say, look, even if you're sort of having a rough day and what sort of has triggered things for you is quite silly, just give me a call, and we can just have a vent, or can talk about anything to sort of take your mind off it. I've got a client that'll call me and just talk about the football. And that helps to bring him back into the present and regulate him a bit more, and sort of stop stressing and letting his anxiety take over his days. So that's something that I always offer to all of my clients, is just say, look, I'm here, just give me a call, we can talk through things. And I find they find that quite beneficial, and it's I guess it's encouraging to just know that you've got someone there that you can call and just talk through things with.
Yeah, it sounds quite a as you said earlier, flexible and informal type of support. Because I guess traditionally, if you were in the mental health system, you've got to wait for your appointment with your psych or your social worker or your counsellor, and that could be weeks, if not months, sometimes. Whereas a recovery coach, by the sound of it, and the service that you're providing is a little bit more hands-on and more immediate. Would that be right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I'd say, I usually will check in with clients, even without hearing from them. I'll just send them a text and say, hey, how's your weekend? Like, how are things going? Like, do you want to catch up over the phone the next day or so? And it's really like having a friend, really, to help you through sort of the NDIS and getting supports, and even just sort of venting about things that aren't sort of going too well for you at the moment. So I find it's quite accessible, and it's consistent. So it's quite easy to work with clients and get those positive outcomes. I guess I always tell my clients that, mental health, like life, it's always going to be a roller coaster. So you're going to have the extreme ups and downs, but it's just about, I guess, celebrating when you get a win in life, and, not getting too down and talking to the right people when you are in that down.
Yeah, and that message really shines through in the One Good Day Instagram page. So that's how I connected with One Good Day, and vice versa. Is some of that it's just simple messaging that we forget about that can just turn a bad day or the downwards path on a roller coaster start to go up again as well. But tell us a bit about One Good Day and some of the things that they're doing.
Yeah, so One Good Day is an organisation of psychosocial recovery coaching. So essentially, their goal is to provide, I guess, like a judgment-free experience where you can access a recovery coach as a support. But One Good Day is an organisation. I really can't speak highly enough of them, especially just as an employee. It's definitely the most sort of positive work experience I've had to date. And they're very, I guess, engaged in the lives of our clients. We want the absolute, their priority number one. Making them feel heard and listened to is, I guess, the main priority. But I think the big message behind One Good Day, as you said, is that the nice little asterisk next to the good means that's interchangeable. So you're always going to have a day where it's bad, or you might go as far as saying it's an awful day. But it's sort of about being able to bounce back and come back from that, and make sure, like, even if you're just having the one good day in a week, at least it's an improvement, and trying to, I guess, get the best out of your life and make life fulfilling and positive as much as it can be.
Yeah, I love that asterisk on their marketing as well, because it did remind me of, like, there was a one dark day that I saw recently, and as you said, it is very much a roller coaster. So one day, or it could be 1 week or 1 month or 1 year, like you're going really well, and then the next day you're not, or it could be like a zigzag effect. It could be 1 day great, 1 day bad, 1 day great, 1 day bad, and it really is that roller coaster ride that
definitely
totally throws us as people off, and even the supports around people. So living with mental illness myself, and I've been going through a bit of a roller coaster recently. Sometimes it's hard for my wife to gauge where I'm at. Am I up or down today? And I guess it's holding on to that hope that things do get better, and that knowledge that things do get better with time. It's just about finding those little things each day that pep us up. It could be a chat with a recovery coach, could be a cup of tea, even just getting out of bed, having a shower, and making your bed, something like that. Something so small and simple can really start to turn the tide and move things forward.
Definitely.
But you mentioned a good culture there at One Good Day of other recovery coaches. Is it just recovery coaching that they provide, or they provide other supports as well?
So they've got, I guess you'd call it like a sister organisation, which is it's on-site. So that's support coordination and sort of the admin side of things as well. So I'd say it is predominantly psychosocial recovery coaching, but there's a lot of different sort of elements and roles that goes into, I guess, making the organisation and psychosocial recovery coaching work as a whole. I think just going back to sort of the One Good Day thing, I think the best part of it is, acknowledging that even on your good days, your recovery coach is going to be there. And in turn, on your bad days, your recovery coach is still going to be there for you. So I guess it's just very reassuring. And yeah, I've heard nothing sort of but good feedback.
Yeah, wonderful. And what's the team like? You mentioned it's got a good team culture. Is it predominantly males, or is it a mix of males and female coaches?
Yeah, so it's a mix of both. We've also sort of got a good mix of, different lived experiences and expertise. And it's very inclusive. So it's probably the most, positive sort of workplace that I've, it's just absolutely shattered my expectations of sort of what a workplace should be like. It's just so inclusive, positive and supportive. I honestly can't speak any higher of it.
Yeah, you mentioned lived experience. So we often talk about lived experience in the mental health space, but also learned experience. So the learned experience is the going to uni or the courses that we do to get the theories behind the practice, but also the lived experiences, like what you experienced in year 6 and 7. People like me, lived experiences 30 plus years. Some of the other coaches, I'm assuming, have got quite a wealth of lived experience. And I think that when you blend the two, it really helps connect with clients as well, because they can understand, you do know what I'm feeling like, or you understand the things that I'm saying. It's that can be a really connecting experience, I'd imagine, for someone like yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in sort of the client matching process, it's definitely sort of taken into consideration as well what your previous experiences are and, what your knowledge base is. And then you're sort of matched up with your client base. So I find a lot of the time, it's, I laugh with clients sometimes and say, look, you're supporting my mental health as much as I'm supporting yours. And although I laugh, so honestly, some days it's completely true. I can have conversations with clients and, without going too sort of in depth with things, just, I actually quite enjoy hearing what their experiences are and, their strategies with dealing with things and, trying those out myself. Because as I guess we both know, mental illness isn't something that you sort of, take some medication or do a year of rehab or something like that and it goes away. It's something that's, it's consistent, can pop up, when you least expect it, it sort of creeps up on you. So I think it's really just about how you manage it. So I think I've, through a lot of my clients, I've picked up a lot of strategies that, that have started to work for me as well in, I guess, managing my own mental health.
Wonderful. And I guess it comes back to that shared experience of mental illness when you're through that client connecting phase that you talked about, or, linkaging. That also brings out that resilience component as well, where they're talking out loud just through the art of conversation, a cup of tea or whatever it is. And all of a sudden they're saying, oh, this is what I've done. And then at the end, they might go, oh, shit, I forgot about that. So it sounds like the art of conversation, I guess that's probably the central to the role, is conversation, being able to have a conversation with someone and not be too concerned about, disability. I guess there's a lot of stigma around the term disability, and some people shy away from it, and it's a bit confronting, particularly when we're talking about significant disability, someone who's going through quite a significant acute phase, for example. Have you had any situations where you've been confronted and you're not sure how to approach something, and how did you maybe overcome that?
So yeah, I guess as you said, disability can be sort of quite a confronting word. So I think, the connotation that you draw upon when you hear disability is you automatically think of physical disability. And quite often with most of my clients, if you pass them in the street, you'd have no idea whatsoever that, a lot of them are struggling quite deeply with psychological sort of challenges. So I think I always try and reinforce, even though, they are labelled with the term disability, it doesn't have to define them and the person they are. It's just something that they, deal with on a daily basis, but it's not who they are. The person they are is the person that wakes up and gets out of bed every morning, puts their shoes on and puts on a brave face and goes out to work, or kicks their day off with a walk and that sort of thing. So I think, I'm very much I've started taking the positives out of the negatives in my own life as well. And I find if you focus in on the positives and sort of take the negatives as they come, you usually life sort of rolls around and you find it's quite easy to deal with in a sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's always days that are worse, and you sort of have to, I guess, endure them. But it's just about going through, what works for you and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess another label, like we in the mental health space, we always talk about labels, and as you said, like you're not the label or the name that someone's given you. A lot of people who might not even be on the NDIS would be, just living with mental illness more generally, don't really like the label of having depression or living with anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder, PTSD, or whatever it is. But then to add disability to that, I guess we're coming a long way in the disability space now that we've got people like Dylan Olcott, the Australian of the Year, who's championing disability and trying to break down that stigma and so forth, associated with the name. Do you find anyone that you work with that really has strong views around labels and trying to overcome, being labelled as someone with a disability, or just being labelled as someone with mental illness?
Look, to be honest, I think the majority of the people I share the office with sort of share the same views. I think it's great, especially I think Tyson Fury has been a big one for me and a big inspiration. So a lot of the comments that he's made and talks he's had about mental illness and his struggles have really resonated for me. As he says, you view the heavyweight boxer champion of the world as the strongest man on earth. Obviously you don't expect them to have any struggles. They're rich, successful, have fame and glory and sort of everything that you could ever want. But as Tyson Fury talks about, it got to his mental health got to the stage where he was putting on massive amounts of weight from poor eating, was doing drugs, and even got to the point where he sort of didn't want to be around anymore. So I think, especially sort of after his sort of comeback from that, I think, that's something, if it can happen to, anyone like that's got, money, anything, all the sort of worldly wants, it can happen to absolutely anyone. And, you're not any lesser because you're affected by these things. In fact, I'd argue that you're probably a lot more resilient and have a lot more stronger of a character because this is something you deal with and, still go through life. Yeah.
And that's a great point, is that mental illness or psychosocial disability doesn't discriminate. It could happen to anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
From the people at the top of the world down to the bottom. And often the people that are like the people at the grassroots level, the people without support, the people that, you might be supporting, don't have much money. They don't have much support networks around them. So the fact that they're still getting out of bed every day and doing the things that they need to do without all those other supports that someone who has a lot of money and has a lot of access to resources, I guess is a testament to the strength-based approach and the strength of people that live with mental illness as well. And as you said, they're even perhaps more resilient, more strong than we give them credit for as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm really enjoying unpacking the recovery coach model. It's something, as I said, is new to me, relatively new to me, something that we don't talk about very often, probably outside of the NDIS space. I imagine not many people have heard of recovery coaching as well. But what's some advice to someone that you could give today who they might be really struggling? They haven't got a support network around them. They're looking for someone like yourself, to come and help them out or be in their corner as well. But they're not really quite ready to make that phone call. What's some kind of advice that you could give to maybe encourage them to make that phone call?
Yeah. So I suppose, obviously, I do sort of everything I could to encourage them to actually do make that phone call. I mean, at the absolute worst, you're losing maybe two to 5 minutes of your time. But at the absolute best, you're putting yourself on a path to complete recovery, and sort of it's another great support to have someone in your corner, sort of rooting for you, encouraging you, motivating you, and sort of I wouldn't say I sort of push my clients along either. I like to think that I sort of walk alongside them as well. So it's not I'm not going to go to your house and drag you out of bed every morning. It's very much, we work together. It's a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
So I work, quite closely with their other supports, and even, their family and friends. So I speak with a lot of my clients, like their husbands or their wives, or even their brothers and sisters and their mums and dads. So it's a really, a team-based approach. It's not, I wouldn't say it's, as I said, it's not pushing them along. It's saying, look, this is where you are at the moment, at your absolute lowest. Obviously, it's not how the rest of your life has to be.
Mm-hmm.
At least let's give it a go. Let's try and make things a bit more positive for you.
Wonderful. And you mentioned before that One Good Day is now every state and territory except for Northern Territory. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So I believe as early as sort of the start of last week, they just opened up another team in Adelaide.
Oh, cool. And is it easy to get in contact, or?
Yeah, definitely. So you can, depending on, what your area is, you can call the relevant number, and the admin team are great. They'll pick up your call straight away and talk you through and explain everything.
And I imagine that given it's part of the NDIS, that there's also other providers out there as well, that if someone rings up One Good Day and it's not a good fit, it doesn't stop them from getting support elsewhere. Would that be right?
Yeah, exactly right. So there's obviously other organisations that you can access that will offer recovery coaching, or even support coordination, which can set up your all of your supports, like your support workers and stuff, but is less, I guess, focused on mental health.
Yeah, cool, wonderful. Well, Jake, I've really enjoyed unpacking what a recovery coach is. I love One Good Days, the way that they advertise in the social media space. It's something that I'm passionate about through Mindful Men as well. But this is now your time to shine. And I mean, you've been shining for the whole episode, but it's your time to maybe plug something that, like a resource maybe, or something that's a good listen, or a good book, or something good watch, maybe something that your clients enjoy or that you enjoy or someone from the team enjoys.
Yeah, so I guess obviously a quick sort of plug to my organisation, and probably to sort of my supervisors, Lisa and Simon. They've been great so far. But in terms of sort of like mental health, I find personally, and it's a bit of a weird one, I never sort of thought I'd get to the stage where I find like quotes, and even just little poems quite sort of inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
So I catch myself even before the gym, like I'll watch like a sort of inspiring YouTube video, and it sort of really picks me up for the day, and it gets my mind thinking, and I find when I occupy my mind with positive thinking, even if I haven't completely taken in what it says, it means I'm not dwelling on the negatives for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think you can take a lot from quotes and poets, and that sort of thing.
Do you have a go-to quote that you love?
I've actually got one on my wall. I might pull it down quickly. It's this one here. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
It's I think the poem's called "The Man in the Arena."
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say look that one up. It's very good. It's not the most like the easiest read, but essentially, I guess the brunt of it is that sort of it doesn't matter, what anyone else is sort of saying about you and your experiences. The sort of everything comes back to the man that's actually in the arena and is going through the battle, whether that be in life or in your head. It's just about empowering yourself and not buying too much into what other people think.
Yeah, wonderful. I love it. I'll look it up and I'll put a link to it if I can find it in the show notes below, and also for One Good Day as well. But Jake, thanks so much for your time today. I know you're a very busy man. I'm sure you've got lots of clients to give a call to and go have a cup of tea with. But I really do appreciate time and I've really enjoyed our chat talking about recovery coaching.
No, thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode, and I hope you got some value from it. If anything triggered your mental health today, please reach out to your support networks. Also, if you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your mates. For more from Mindful Men, you can check us out on Instagram and YouTube, and I'll throw the links to these pages in the show notes below. But until next time, stay mindful.